So let's go back into our front view and let's hide everything that's not, is this our face? Yeah, that's the one we want. So we'll hide everything else except the reference, that is, just so we can get a better look at, the rest of the parts of the face. So just guessing here, I think there is a metal outer ring, which is kind of what our initial cylinder here is kind of representing. And that kind of goes in until we get to another ring, and then it goes back in, and then I believe there's a bit of a lip here as it goes up, and then it goes flat again. Right, and on top of that, on top of this metal ring here, the inner ring, is the glass half sphere, this kind of squashed, kind of very circular shape. So that's kind of how we'll approach this. Hopefully we get it right. So let's take the shape we got. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because I wasn't quite happy with the size. So probably about there. I'm going to go into my front view. I'm going to select this so I can select that face there. I want to select this face in the front. So I'm going to go face mode. Select this face. I'm going to do right click, inset faces. And it's a bit finicky, but essentially once you've done it, you can start to drag your mouse. So I hate this. So I'm just going to left click and I'm going to change to my scale tool, and that gives me a little bit more specificity and control, I should really say, in what I'm doing. So that's my outer ring. I'm taking a bit of liberties here in how far this goes in. Yeah, that's probably good. I want that to then extrude out. So I'm going to extrude faces. And it's still snapping, which is fine. I'll just turn my snapping off and then just move this back. I'm just going to roughly guess how far I want this to be forward. Probably about there. I don't want it to be too far forward. So that's probably okay. And again, I'll do another inset. Probably about there. And then I'm going to do another extrude. In this case, I want it to extrude back in. But I want it to extrude it pretty much exactly where it was coming out from. So I'm going to turn this back on so I can actually see a bit better. So what I might do is I might turn snapping on, and I'm going to go by vertex. And then I'm just going to kind of start moving this. And once it's started moving, I'm going to hover over the one I want it to snap to. So they're all lined up now perfectly to exactly where it was, which I think is working pretty well. Now let's go back into the front view. Great. And I'm going to want to do another inset. Let's make sure I got the right face selected. Great, that's what I want. I'm going to do another inset. I'll go back to my front view, scale to where I want it, roughly there. And because I want it to have a bit of a slant to it, I'm going to just push that forward without the snapping on, of course. And that's pretty much it. Just kind of deciding how far I think it should go forward. So not too far. Probably about there. Let's go to the side view. Let's kind of get a better idea of what we're looking at. Yeah, that's probably good. Great. So let's go to object view. And that's our shape so far. So pretty good. The thing we're missing is the glass piece. So let's go ahead and make that now. I will just save again. And because I'm a smart cookie, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start saving these in increments, so that if there's ever an issue, I can always just jump back. Okay, so from here, I think we're going to use the UV sphere, and I'm going to use, if I can avoid it, I don't want this pinching spot, and that's something we will learn as we go. I'm going to roughly kind of scale it into where I want it. I'm going to put this back on so I can see. And before I go any further, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this half because we really don't need it. So let's go into our right view. and go faces and make sure occlude. Here we are, the occlude is on. I'm just going to drag select everything here. I'm just going to hit delete, and it's going to give me this option. Generally, you're going to want either delete faces or dissolve edges. In this case, just delete faces is what we want. So one thing I didn't do is I didn't play around with the options here, but I might do that again after I've illustrated how I would do this, just to clean that up a bit. So probably about that. And now I'll push it into place. And now it's just a matter of getting the right size. It's a bit hard to make out, but this is the outer ring, so I need that to kind of match up to the center here, where the glass would be sitting. Great, and I'll go to my right view and just make sure it's sitting on top where it's supposed to go. Great. Right about there. And because our origin point is right here in the center, when we go ahead and scale this, it's scaling from that point, so we can kind of play around with where that's sitting. Great. So let's go to object mode. See, now that I'm looking at that, I think that's quite a bit far forward. And I'm pretty unhappy with how many polys we're using here for that particular object. So I might recreate that just in the same way, you know, nothing overly complicated. So this is probably segueing to a really interesting point, that, you know, if you find that, you know, you've gone ahead and made a mistake with how much geometry you've used, it's often better just to try to recreate that piece than it is to try to fix it. It will depend on the thing itself, but it's going to be something to keep in mind. So in this case, I've decided just to recreate it. I'm going to go add, mesh, I'm going to do UV sphere. I'm going to take this down to something much smaller, because I really don't need much. You won't even notice it more than likely, but the one thing I definitely want is an edge loop running down just the middle here, because I will be cutting off half of it again. So maybe 16. We might be able to get away with 18. Yeah, I think 18 is probably good. Let's go with 18 for now. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm sorry, I'm going to go into, let's do the top view. It doesn't really matter which view we use, as long as we, okay, so I've actually run myself into a corner here again. Let's go ahead and delete this. So I could rotate this and get this right, but it's easier again just to do it. So UV sphere, 18 is not going to work because we don't have a center line down the middle, and we can see that when we look at the top. So 20 is probably going to be our go-to here. So again, face, select all these faces, delete faces. Object, I'm going to scale this in, scale it down. I'll play with this in a bit. So probably about here. Okay, let's look at it from the front. Again, that's probably pretty good. So yes, that's probably pretty good. Let's go with that for now. And if we feel like we need to change that, we can. That's completely fine. Again, nothing's ever going to be perfect the first time you do it. It's just a matter of getting it to a point where it's actually functional and you know, doesn't, you know, use more resources than necessary. In this case, with how much geometry we're using. So this is the glass face. Oops, let's capitalize. And we'll hide that. Awesome. So let's bring everything back actually. Let's have a look. So that's what we got so far. I think that's come along quite nicely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these pieces here. So just with shift select, I'm just going to move that back a little bit just to give a bit more room to what we're doing here. Yeah, all right. I think that's good.